welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the activities that shaped ILO DG's visit to Nigeria. We also have stories for you. We will be right back. The Director General of the International Labour Organization, ILO, Gilbert Ungo, has called on labour leaders not to relent in their efforts towards organizing and belonging to unions. Ungo stated this during a walking visit to the headquarters of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, in Abuja. The Director General of the ILO listened to various labour leaders and their various feedback of industrial relations in the country and Africa.
We need to bring to your attention some of our challenges in the practice of trade unionism in Nigeria. We have done a review of the labor administration laws. These seem to have disappeared within government bureaucracy, and there's a tendency that it may be tinkered, but the social partners met and agreed on it. Just a question of the Minister of Justice coming up with the legal drafting for its enactment. That has not seen the light of the day. The increasing use of violence by the state in industrial relations is getting worrisome. And the refusal to engage constantly with organized labor via a social dialogue on critical national issues, despite government's pledge to be guided by social dialogue in their inaugural speech. Non-constitution of the governing boards, which I mentioned today in the course of our discussion, because of issues that came up there. Public institutions, parastatals, that labor has statutory representation. Appointees of government, therefore, run amok their political interests to the detriment of workers.
The president of NLC have spoken so much, most especially the deliberate intention of the government to frustrate the enactment of the labor bills into law. It will interest you to note that in 2005, the ILO set up a technical task team to process to ensure that the obsolete labor laws are amended in line with the developmental issues in labor administration in Nigeria. But as we speak, 20 years down the line, nothing has come out. The intention of government continually is to frustrate it, because if this 10 assembly does not enact it into law, the 11th assembly will come and they'll start all over again, which by singular approach shows that government is deliberate in not enacting it. We also talk about the issue of inclusivity. Let me surprise you, Your Excellency, that here today, the government can set up economic team without taking the interests of the organized labor into consideration. No stakeholders engagement in policy formulation or in totality policy making and implementation process, which has raised noise in some of the policies of a government. In terms of taxation and tariff, like we said, it has become a recurring decimal as far as this administration is concerned.
This ILO is an institution to defend workers, and our flexibility is getting to the point that it will break. We do not want that, and if it does, it will threaten industrial relations considerably. DG, on social justice, social safety net is not negotiable. We want to see more of ILO's voice, an instrument and support for it to grow resource mobilization. We have made the point about illicit financial flow. We've made the point about the burden of debt, but in its social policies and prescription pronouncement, maybe that will help. A link to that is that we are entering so many spaces of financing possibilities. The Finance for Development in Seville in late June and it's early July, and the World Social Development Summit. We still want to see, especially the World Social Development Summit, because it's anchored by the ILO. One of the takes we want to push is that the question of financing possibility for Africa should be very, very clear. It's not an apologetic demand. And then finally, for time, is that for us in Africa and our brother in the other side of the global south, Latin America and Asia, we are building some kind of South-South collaboration. And we want to see the ILO also having insertion to supporting that process. And what are the things we want to do? How do we contribute to the solutions as critical stakeholders in the world of work and in our different economies?
One of the issues that we had raised is the problem that workers are not as represented in employment within the ILO and in the headship. Of course, as we told you in Nairobi, we are very happy with you that after you were appointed DG, you were elected DG, you took one of our own, the Executive Secretary of the East African Trade Union Confederation, Sister Caroline, and made her one of the area directors. We're very happy with that.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
It's the second day of the working visit of the ILO DG to Nigeria. Its first stop is the NECA Adjudication and Arbitration Forum. Members of the organized private sector, government officials, and labor representatives convened to deliberate on industrial relations and adjudication process.
This year's theme, Labor Adjudication and Appellate Jurisdiction Challenges and Prospects, is both timely and critical as labor relations become increasingly complex. The role of a strong appellate system in upholding justice and maintaining industrial harmony cannot be overemphasized. The adjudication process is the foundation of industrial justice, ensuring that disputes between employers and employees are resolved with fairness and equity.
This is NECA's contribution not only to industrial peace, it is NECA's contribution to investment generation, it is NECA's contribution to the advancement of the growth of the private sector. And without the growth of the private sector, hardly can you talk about GDP growth.
The Director General of the International Labour Organization highlighted key elements that can enhance the adjudication process in Nigeria and across Africa. Stakeholders from the tripartite structure emphasized that industrial peace is crucial for economic growth and sustainable development.
We want to assure Nigerians as a government under the leadership of our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, that this government is always committed with a very good listening ears to talk to and to work with our workers and to ensure that we work together as a team for the economic development of our dear country. For us to do this, we have to carry everybody along and to ensure that we understand ourselves and we agree on all the issues that are before us.
This presentation attempts to examine the complex issues, challenges, and prospects surrounding labor adjudication and appellate jurisdiction, with the primary objective of identifying pragmatic and effective solutions that strike a balance between the interests of workers, employers, and the government in the broader economy to contribute to the development of policies and strategies that foster a fair, equitable, and productive workplace. The labor law is undergoing a significant transformation driven by technological advancements, changing workforce, demographics, and shifting societal values. Emerging trends in the workplace, such as the gig economy, artificial intelligence, and remote work, are redefining the traditional employer-employee relationship, imposing new challenges for labor adjudication and appellate jurisdiction.
Too many workers find the adjudication process complex and intimidating. Ensuring that all parties have equal access to justice remains a priority. Simplifying processes and providing support systems that educate workers and their rights can help address this issue. What are the prospects? Despite these challenges, there are significant process ahead, particularly as we align our efforts with President Bola Tinubu's New Hope agenda. A cornerstone of this agenda is the recent signing into law of the minimum wage bill, which sets the minimum wage at 70,000 naira. The landmark aim is to improve the economic status of our workers and reflects a commitment to enhancing their welfare amidst these economic challenges we currently face.
This forum provides a unique opportunity for stakeholders to share experiences, exchange ideas, and identify practical solutions to the challenges facing labor abdication and arbitration in Nigeria. I'm confident that our participation will enrich today's discussions and contribute significantly to the quest for a more equitable and productive labor market.
It was concluded at the event that for social justice to be achieved, decent work must prevail. After the Adjudication and Arbitration Forum, the ILO DG proceeded to the Vice President's office. The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria informed the ILO DG of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's commitment to a thriving workforce and an efficient labor ecosystem.
And I've gone through your curriculum vitae. I was amazed at the plethora of awards and institutions you attended. You are a polyglot. You went to a university in Canada. You worked for Price Waterhouse. You have private sector experience. And then you came to the government and became a prime minister in Togo. And then you went back to the international system. We are mightily proud of your accomplishments. And in Nigeria, we have a very vibrant labor movement headed by supremely competent and patriotic Nigerians. Yes, we may be at different poles, but essentially we are all serving the same cause, the cause of the Nigerian people. So be rest assured that the President is very passionate about the Nigerian labor movement. And we have raised the minimum wage, and most states of the Federation have already started implementing the new minimum wage because we are a federation. There are states that even jack up the rate higher than the 70,000 that we agreed upon. And I want to commend the NLC for their statesmanship. The most radical wing were agitating for a much higher figure. It was the likes of Comrade Joy Ajero, who is seen as a radical, who are even the moderating forces in the movement. I want to thank you for agreeing on that 70,000.
Other dignitaries present at the meeting included the Minister for Labor and Employment, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Labor and Employment, the National Directorate of Employment Director General, the National Productivity Center Director General, the Director General of the Michael Imodu Institute for Labor Studies, the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, and the first National Deputy President of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria. On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the International Labour Organization Director General. He tells me what shapes the intention of his visit to Nigeria, and also told me some of the planned activities for the International Labour Organization. Thank you very much for your time. You're back in Nigeria the second time, but the first time as the ILO DG. Can you tell us what's your mission here in Nigeria?
Well, we have a chance to discuss that maybe in Geneva. Nigeria is such a major player in ILO in general, but particularly in ILO agenda worldwide. Secondly, we have a major office here and our activity in Nigeria. All of that now that we have President Tinubu has been almost 2 years now. It's important for me to be here to take stock on our partnership, our collaboration with one of our major member states.
What has been the feedback from the employers of labor? What has been the feedback from workers? And maybe from government or from the ILO office here also in Nigeria? Listen,
since yesterday there's been non-stop and therefore very, very rich discussion. On one hand, everybody recognizes the leadership that Nigeria institutionally has always been demonstrating. Obviously, we talk about the courageous decision from an economic standpoint that the government has to make to correct what all that were seemed to be imbalanced from an economic viewpoint. Then with that, the serious concern by workers, by trade unions about the severe impact on those decisions on the cost of living. And that cost of living, we know, already was a problem in the whole world, not just in Nigeria, but you could feel in the inflation. And so the need to balance the economic measures and ensuring that the inequalities are not increasing, that the workers still have a minimum living wage is become a serious matter.
Talking about the world of work generally and the challenges that the world is facing, especially about earning a living wage. What's your view about President Donald Trump's withdrawal of foreign aid? How does that affect the working populace going forward?
First of all, I think we need to respect what the administration, the President Trump administration has decided. It's a sovereign member state. The United States is an important member of ILO, so ILO, we are respecting that, which I think is important. Secondly, it is my understanding and belief that what has been requested now is a pause, so to give the administration time to assess the foreign aid, to assess the activity, and we are looking forward to this assessment. From ILO perspective, I do think that there's a lot of what we're doing. We are obviously ready to engage. We do think that a lot of our activities go beyond the concept of foreign aid. It's when we talk about the normative agenda of ILO, it's a matter of ensuring that when it comes to labor rights, when it comes to labor standard and convention, we all are playing on a leveled playing field. So that is not just a matter of development, it's not just a matter of foreign aid, it's a matter of all of us abiding by the same agreed rule. So I think we will be ready to engage on that. So it's simple. Let's be honest. The U.S. is an important player in international development, and this decision, be it temporary, affects every part of the world on that. Am I concerned that can have an impact on the global development? Yes, but we also need to be ready to understand the perspective, the policy direction, and adjust as fit or as required.
Talking about development and talking about the world of work, we know that when we talk about work now in the 21st century, we're talking about digitalization. It means that you don't necessarily have to be physically present at the workplace for you to work effectively. And I remember during COVID, you said we should be a better normal, and which means that it should be better welfare for workers despite the situation we find ourselves in. What is ILO's recommendation towards ensuring that decent work is prioritized in this particular situation, whereby we have flexibility of workplace taking over the regular maybe 9-to-5 job?
Well, I think we don't necessarily have a very specific recommendation or an official one, but clearly it's not a top-down approach. Each country at the national level or each major corporation has to analyze its own situation and decide accordingly. But clearly we all know that the traditional way very likely will have to change more and more as we go in this digital world. So on one hand, you can have companies, and we have seen a lot of companies since the end of COVID, a lot of companies are deciding to be fully back on that. But at the same token, we also see companies that are allowing the employees to telework or to be flexible enough. The bottom line for me, I think, is important, particularly moving forward with the new generation, to ensure a better balance, work-life balance. I'm trying to see to what extent we can keep the quality of life and the, for each one of us, it's a matter of having a minimum quality of life. At the same token, the importance of moving forward in terms of economic growth, job creation, all of that together. So,
big on social justice. What should be our take home about social justice generally? Vis-a-vis one of the high points of your visit to Nigeria, which was the discussion about adjudication and arbitration process. So can you just summarize what your view is in total?
When you talk about social justice, we're talking about the importance of giving every citizen equal opportunity to life. So then everybody can decide on the basis of merit, but to have that opportunity, the equal opportunity. For us, it's important looking at that in a very positive manner, but trying to see what could we do while we keep the economic growth there, but we also ensuring that economic growth does not prevent reducing the equality. Because let's face it, and that is in our Philadelphia Declaration, poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. So the more we can fight against inequality, the better it is for everybody. Specifically the case of adjudication and arbitration, you see, we are fundamental for that. ILO, we talk about social dialogue, we talk about preventing crisis. In fact, this is what it is about. And I do believe that conflict prevention in general, but particularly labor conflict prevention, is something, it pains me to see when the workers has to go out for a picket on that. It pains me to see workers being on strike, honestly speaking. Nobody gains when you have strike. So, and I also know that the trade unions, they will really do the very best to avoid the strike, and that the strike is the last resort, right? So the more we will have institution, for example, the institution that brings together the three parts, the government, the the trade union, the employers, in a continuous dialogue, the better it is for everybody, so that we can agree on an agenda, then we can see progress being made.
There's a lot that we'll still have to discuss after now, maybe to be a tele-interview, but for now we actually have to make it a wrap. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching.